And welcome to the Communication Theory Doctor. And before I start posting videos addressing specific communication theories, I think it's important to start off with a framework and give you a way to understand communication theories a little bit better and how they fit together. I don't know about you, but when I was first learning about communication theories and communication theory, I was very intimidated. There were so many theories coming at me so quickly from so many different angles of communication study that I thought to myself, how in the world am I going to understand and process and scaffold all these theories? Thankfully, there's a way to do it and a way to think about it that I think is very helpful, especially if you're just in the beginning phases of learning about it. Maybe you're taking an introduction class in communication theory, or maybe you're studying for a communication theory exam and you're looking for a way to kind of understand and put all these theories together. And a great way to do that is through Robert Craig's 7 Traditions of Communication Theory. You ready to learn about Craig's 7 traditions? Okay, let's get started. So the first tradition, and I'm not going to present these in any particular order. What I'm going to do is just tell you about the tradition, give you a brief definition and explanation, and then move on. I'm not going to, in this video, talk about specific theories that I think could belong to each tradition. I'll do that when I cover the individual theories in later videos. But for right now, I'm going to start off by just telling you about each of the 7 traditions and then giving you a brief definition and explanation of each. Okay, let's get started. So the first communication tradition that Craig talks about is the socio-psychological tradition, and that can be defined as communication as interpersonal interaction and influence. So how we talk, how we interact with one another on a social basis, how we use communication as a way to influence other people and to influence our world, that can be understood within the socio-psychological tradition. So theories that deal with interpersonal communication and influence are going to fit into broadly the socio-psychological tradition. The next one that I want to talk about is the cybernetic tradition. And the cybernetic tradition concerns communication as information processing. So in other words, understanding how communication functions as a system. So how communication, for example, might work in an organization, bottom up, top down, side to side, etc. That's communication in the cybernetic tradition. The next tradition that Craig talks about, and these are in no particular order, but the next one that I'll highlight is the rhetorical tradition, and that's simply defined as communication as artful public address. So thinking about it from the standpoint of public speaking, speech making, speech giving, how you use language and put it together in an address, in a speech, in a rhetorical situation. That is the rhetorical tradition and the theories that are intended to that. The next one that I want to focus on is the semiotic tradition, and that concerns communication as signs and symbols. Again, we live in a world of symbols. Words are symbols, and symbols are things that really have no particular connection to what they symbolize, but yet we use them to mean whatever that is. And so semiotics talk about understanding, the semiotic tradition talks about understanding how signs and symbols function as communication. And there are many theories that fit into that, as we'll see in the individual videos later. The next tradition is the sociocultural tradition, and that's communication as the creation and enactment of social reality. So how does communication function within our culture? What role does it play in cultural variables and in larger elements of cultural understanding? That is the sociocultural tradition. And again, we'll look at theories that may fit into that tradition a little bit later. The next one is the critical tradition, and this gets into communication as reflective challenge and specifically as a reflective challenge to unjust discourse. So theories that discuss the imbalances of power and how communication plays into that can be considered part of the critical tradition. And again, we'll look at specific examples of that in later videos. And then finally, the phenomenological tradition, which is communication as the experience of self and others through dialogue. So the conversations that we have with people, the dialogue that we initiate with others, and the communication that takes place from that, how we understand dialogue and how we foster dialogue and the strategies involved in doing that are all part of the phenomenological tradition. And so again, as we consider these 7 traditions that I've just presented, we'll look at, in future videos, specific theories that fit into each one of these, and that'll help you connect the dots a little bit later. But the dots, the cranks are already probably turning in your mind a little bit as specific theories that you've learned about. Oh yeah, I think that theory fits into the cybernetic tradition, or oh yeah, I think that fits into sociocultural, or whatever your mind may be thinking. You're probably already turning, the wheels are probably already turning in your mind as you're thinking about these theories and the traditions that they match up to. And so, again, join me for future videos as we look at specific communication theories and we look at their place in the 7 traditions. And that's the theory.